Coach Moshe.
That's me.
That's you. That's you. Just wanted to make sure that I'm sitting across the right person. Good to see you. We're sitting here in the this really warm, feels like this warm bunker in your home. Is this also your office?
It's only my office.
This is your office.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It feels very safe. It feels very calm and quaint here.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, that's the vibes I'm getting.
That's what we're looking for.
That's what you're looking for. Good. Well, thanks for having me. This is I'm really excited for this podcast. I'm sure you remember, we go way back. We go, 15 years ago. You were my shliach. You were one of the older guys in the yeshiva I went to back in high school in Stearns, upstate New York.
Yes. I remember. I could see you. I remember exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pre-beard, before the beard, before Mayor K, before the whole nine. I remember that was it was a cool yeshiva because that was I'm curious to know how your experience was there. For me, it was already by then it was my second year in high school. It was my second attempt at going to high school. So I went to one yeshiva, I went to one high school. After a few months, it didn't work out. Was home for the rest of the year. And then that year opened up the Stern. It was the first year of the high school. And it was supposed to be a bit more cool and open-minded and less strict and a bit more colorful for kids who just weren't mainstream, quote unquote. And so I actually, the first year it opened up, I tried it out for the first 2 months, the last 2 months of the school year. And then it opened in the second year, I went for the full year. And for me, it wasn't that great, actually. Do you remember that? I wonder if how was it for you? And what was that experience like?
That was, I could get into it later, but I still have good relationships with a lot of the guys that were there.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was so capable or I was really qualified, but I was teaching a little bit then. And there are a couple of guys, like when I see them in the street, they'll quote certain things that I taught them. And I'll be like, whoa, okay, that's very humbling. Wow. And that's a big deal. And this is all while, we could get into it later, but I was going through a ton of stuff behind the scenes.
What was going behind the scenes? Well, the way you showed up in my life as like this older guy, the shliach, so you must be like 1920 at the time. So like it's only 4 or 5 years older, but like in my state of mind, it seems like, way older. Sort of like going to camp and your counselor seems like he's like a billion years older than you are. And you're like, wait a second, you become a counselor like, we're like babies. But yeah, we weren't that close then. And like, I wasn't necessarily close with anybody in that school at the time. I was getting bullied during that period of my life as well. So didn't really feel part of it, but but also you guys were doing your own thing. I feel like it might have been like this double standard where I think guys in my class were smoking weed and you may have been taking that weed away and smoking it yourself. But like,
no, we had our own stash.
Oh, you had your own stash. You had your own stash. Amazing. If Robert Stern's listening to this podcast, he may be having a heart attack, but I
hope not.
I hope not. Yeah. But tell me, so what was going on for you in that time of your life?
Yeah, so I had a couple of things going on. Number one is I wanted to have that experience. I wanted to help or like be there for younger guys. And I think we did to a certain extent. Like there were certain relationships I was able to build then, which continued until now. There were those dancing on Saturday night on Moishe Shabbos. You remember we do the music and we dance. Sure. That was like a highlight. There was, one-on-one times. There was, waking the guys up. I used to take a CD that was scratched, and I would stick it into their little 3 CD stereo piece, and I just hit play.
Oh man, dude,
that was
like
one
torture.
room.
That's like straight off from like the playbook of like SEAL's torture camp.
I was a very practical guy. It worked.
Just get it done.
I would try to have as much fun with it because especially that age, these guys didn't want to wake up in the morning, so that was really good. And there was also the learning. I was also started doing smicha. It was like a rabbinic certification, so I was doing that too. And then we had this whole other life going on across the street. And
across the street is where you guys were staying.
Yeah, we were staying. And, I'll just speak I'm only going to speak for myself. I'd love to get into the details about like what was going on. So basically, only a couple of months earlier was the first time I ever got introduced, not really introduced, the first time I ever tried smoking weed. Mm-hmm. And that was, I was already introduced to it from when I'm like 13, 14 years old, but I just never tried it. But right before I went there, a couple of months earlier is when the first time I tried it. and very quickly became a daily smoker.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And
though people say weed's not really addictive, but I put words. Did you feel like you were getting addicted to that, or?
Well, I'll tell you what happened when I tried to stop, and
Okay.
I think anybody can come up with their own conclusion.
Sure.
When I tried to stop, I found myself isolating a lot, and I dove into religion. Chitas, Rambam, sitting there with a book. And just in case I get distracted or I start getting tired, I had a video playing of the Rebbe. And so in case I get distracted, I'll just look at that. So like there's no empty space. And I was trying to fill a void inside myself with anything that will make me feel better. So
why do you think you started smoking weed, or why do you think that emptiness started coming up during that period of your life? 18, 19?
I think the reason why it wasn't like it was coming up. It became so much more apparent to me because weed did that for me. Weed filled that or turned off that alarm system saying, hey, there's a void. And then smoke some weed and all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I know that there's a void, but right now I just don't care. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with it. So being able to experience that for an extended period of time, when I don't have it, I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is so painful. This is isolating. This is... Mm-hmm. So,
what did you use to do that to numb your voidness or your uncomfortability of existence before that period of time?
There's definitely, I mean, I did do drinking, and I think there was many things. Like I share my story if anybody wants to like just YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. Just type in Moishe Chanin. So it's MoISheChanin, and I just basically share my story. So I felt that void, not realizing that it's not normal from like I'm way little, like 7, 8.
Oh, wow.
And the first time I start figuring out ways to fill that, which for me, the void it expressed itself in ways like I don't fit in. I don't feel like I'm part of my family. I don't feel like I'm good enough. I have to do things to compensate. And it started off with things like stealing, shoplifting, trying to buy things to buy credibility, to buy self-esteem and worth.
Yeah.
And then it eventually turned to like different unhealthy, addictive behaviors. And what am I addicted to? I'm addicted to turning that pain off. Mm-hmm. And what's the addiction? The addiction has almost nothing to do with the actual substance. It has to do with how I feel when I don't have it.
Right now in your life, I mean, you come out, you're talking about addiction, and it seems like you're very proud of that. It's part of who you are. Is that correct? I mean, is that correct?
Yeah.
So do you feel like now the world has shifted a lot more? Like you feel a lot more comfortable coming out now? And how did that differ from 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
When you were, when you were acting out and doing what you were doing.
Yeah. So I think the conversation was happening somewhere. You know, I just wasn't in that environment. Mm-hmm. Not only was I not in that environment basically didn't really exist in my community, in my close proximity. So it wasn't something that it like Ellie Nash says, you know, like shame was just attached to it, and wherever it went, there was just shame attached to it. So it was like, I can't talk about it. Mm-hmm. I can't talk about it. Feel, you know, I definitely, like, thinking about it now, I had a desire or I had a need to share or talk to somebody when I was younger, and I didn't feel like I had it. So talking about today, when you know, sometimes people ask like, why would you do it? Aren't you scared?
Do you like do the substances or like do what?
Oh, talk about it publicly.
Okay.
Aren't you like, isn't the shame still attached to it? Aren't you scared that, you know,
being judged or being ostracizing yourself? Or...
And the answer is that thank God, I've gotten to experience what it's like to bring hope to somebody. And when I put it on a scale and I see the fear of what might happen and what does happen, and I see happens as a result of me speaking publicly, like, it just outweighs it. And I could have the fear and just do it anyway. and I'm trying to open up more while I'm not just looking to just share myself with the world. I know I just see what happens when I do, and it's so meaningful. I want to do more.
Do you feel so? You went through this stage of progression of you're saying you're drinking, you're using the types of substances. When did it get to a point where you realized, like, wait a second, this is not working for me anymore, and like I gotta find something else that's a bit more concrete to help me? Because I mean, with an addiction, right? I mean, those substances were helping you; they're actually keeping you alive. They're helping you function. I think a lot of people believe that when it comes to addiction, and whether it's drugs or alcohol or any other type of substance, it's bad. We got to take it out of their life, which possibly is true, but people don't realize that that's also keeping the person alive, right? It's keeping the addict alive to be able to function in this world. So what is it that, what kind of wake up call, what kind of bottom did you hit that sort of woke you up and said, okay, I got to pull myself together or pull myself out of this mess?
Yeah. And I'll totally say that. But I love what you just said. I just want to actually give somebody like a visual of what it's like to experience that. Yeah. If somebody lived in or had a bedroom and spent a full day with the air conditioner on, and the air conditioner was noisy, and then all of a sudden some person like just pulled out the plug, that noise is all of a sudden, God, man, that feels good. Now I could concentrate. I didn't realize how noisy it was until I finally pulled the plug, right? So yeah, we do it to function because there's so much noise in our head, so many things and things telling us, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, this person's judging me. Oh, social anxiety, all that type of stuff.
But don't most people go have like these types of, I mean, don't we all have a voice in our head? Like, what's the difference? That's what helps someone who isn't an addict, to get into that, to build some compassion, understand what someone's going through. Like, what is the difference for the addict or someone who's addicted to that they need to use all these substances for that noise? Because again, like, part of the human condition is to have that voice in their head.
Yeah, 100%. We all got voices.
Yeah.
At least all the people that I've talked to.
Sure.
Anybody who says, I told myself that I wasn't, who told who?
Right. Who's that person?
Who's the I that told myself?
Sure, right.
So yeah, we all have voices. And I think there's quite a few differences, and there's actually different opinions and like different schools of thought of like how does it work, attachment theory and connection. Like Joanne Harry talks about, you could look at his TED talk. The opposite of addiction is connection. Some of us just need it more, but what do you connect with? What I connect with is the thing that Chase Taub. Did you interview Chase Taub?
Yeah. Fantastic.
The canary in the coal mine. Did he talk about that?
Totally. Yeah, and you could definitely bring that up. You're referring to his book, God of Our Understanding, where he talks about this. This piece.
Yeah, he talks about. Does he mention the canary in the coal mine?
He does.
It's such a great book. I've bought it like probably 14 times. I bought it and I gave it to somebody, and then I bought it again and just.
Sure. Oh, totally. A lot of wisdom, and you don't have to be an addict to really appreciate the wisdom within that book.
100%.
Well.
Yeah, and so what's the difference between like why by addicts is it become like an addiction thing? You know what? I think we're just more sensitive, and we just feel it more. And those voices, just like voices, external voices, will penetrate our emotions and our insides more. The same thing as our inner voices penetrate, and we feel them more. Yeah. So we're just more feelers when it comes to these things. And for us, it has come to the point where we feel it so much that we'll be willing to do things that will harm other parts of ourselves, including loved ones, God forbid, and all that. Because the pain is too great. Mm-hmm. The pain of feeling that so much.
Right. For those of us to just bring it back to what you were referring to about the canaries in the coal mine, Rabbi Chase Taub talks about in his book, God of Understanding, of how these miners will go down into the mines, and there's toxic, fumes and whatnot. And so to know when it's dangerous for them when they have to leave, they bring down canaries, which of course are a lot more sensitive, and birds that come along with them. And once the canaries start to either show signs of distress or to start dying, they know, okay, the fumes are too bad and they have to leave. So I guess you're connecting that to the idea of the human condition, that addicts are just a bit more sensitive to the ways of life, and they are the canaries. And nothing to, like, do you find yourself sometimes or through that process of going to recovery, like just being upset, like why me, victimizing yourself, you know, what, you know, yeah, what, why was I chosen for this package, this deal?
Yeah. I used to ask that question a lot. I've stopped asking that question about some parts of my life, but I still ask that question about other parts of my life. So I still have to process it there.
Sure.
But ultimately the question actually, it presented itself a little bit different for me. For me, it was, God, I'm trying to be good. Why are you making it so difficult for me? I've committed myself and I've recommitted myself. I'm trying to stop. Why are you making it difficult for me? You know? And in the area of alcohol and drugs and a lot of the therapeutic work that I've done, it has transformed from, I'm so grateful that it's me, because I get to be the one that is able to say the most magical words that people have ever heard in their life at a certain point. And that is that I know what it feels like to be where you are. I can explain to you and describe to you how I've experienced it. And I want you to know that not only do I understand and I empathize and I've been there, there's hope for you, because this is my story and this is what worked for me. There's hope for you too. You've been there. I've been there. You're in there. And I can help you out. You know, like that story with the pit. Have you heard it?
No.
Guys, there's a guy falls into a pit and somebody's walking by and sees somebody in the pit. And he says, can you get me out of here? I don't know. I can't really figure out, you know, and basically different people are walking by. Nobody's coming to try to help him out until one guy, he just jumps into the pit with him. And he's like, what'd you just do? Now we're both stuck in here.
No, you're right.
Now we're both stuck. So he says, don't worry about it. I've been in this pit before and I'll show you how I got out. And let's get out together. That's what it is. The honor, the spiritual fulfillment, emotional fulfillment that I'm able to experience from something like that is so worth it. And it answers all those questions of why me.
So, I mean, you grew up in an Orthodox home, a religious home.
Yeah.
So obviously God was all part of that upbringing. So was there a point in time where did you realize you just didn't believe in God? Because I mean, God, because you're talking about this God and believing and asking God and all this is coming conversation. So you were brought up, did you lose it somehow? Or did you just rediscover it at a whole nother new level? What was that process like?
I love that question. What I believed in God. I didn't think that I deserved God's mercy. I had a lot of guilt and shame, and I've done things that I felt like would make me not deserve. So on one hand, I'm trying to do good things. Why don't you help me? I'm trying to repent. I'm trying to return. Why don't you help me? But on the other hand, like anytime I'm not trying, I don't deserve God's grace. I don't deserve God's mercy. And I don't believe he will help me. And that's where the Spirit comes from. So I did believe in God. I just didn't think he thought I was worthy of it.
Mm-hmm. What about someone who doesn't believe in God, but who finds himself or she found himself in this space of confusion, in the pit, addiction?
For me, yes, God and spirituality has been the one most effective and probably the only effective thing to help me. And if somebody doesn't believe, I try to have a very practical conversation with the person, you know, because ultimately we believe. What do we believe in? You know, it's either I believe that there is no God, so that means I believe that there is no God. So I believe. I'll try to ask the question of, is it you? Are you running the show? Is everything that you have and everything that you are and everything that everybody else is it you? Or it's not you. Okay, great. Have you tried everything you possibly can to find your own solution? Yeah. Okay. Are you willing to try something else that worked for somebody else? Especially since you seem to have a similar internal experience of life? If you're willing to, then come do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
try this out. Try something new.
Try it out.
It worked for me. It could work for you.
Yeah, and even if you may not believe in God, but do you believe me when I tell you that it worked for me?
Possibly, you could even be. Right now you're believing in the substance. You believe in this, that it's helping you. Perhaps shift your belief from this to something else.
Yeah, just like when the first time you ever tried a drug, or the first time you ever drank. I don't know what it's going to do to me. Oh, let me try it.
Mm-hmm. All right, go into that adventure, into that abyss.
Yeah.
Are you finding a trend when it comes to why people or maybe fall into this space, or what triggers it? Is it important to know why, to figure out that genesis of time and place of who may have done what to you, or circumstance, to help with one's recovery, or to figure out, to a path of redemption?
Are you asking, like, why do people become addicts and what's the solution?
That's a question, but we touched on that in a way. Why? Because the addict is more sensitive to the condition. But I'm saying, is it important? Is it important to figure out, to do that, to do work to figure out where that may have started and happened, or what may have triggered that? Whether it was some sort of childhood trauma, was it abuse? Was it who knows? Was it some sort of bullying? Is that really important, or it's more about just the fact is, here you are now, doesn't make a really difference. Just do the work, get it done.
Yeah. I think I'll be able to answer that by just giving you a little bit of an idea of a lot of the work that I'm doing now.
Okay.
In addition to the coaching that I'm doing, I'm doing a lot of work on myself on different levels. On a 12-step level, on a therapy level, and on a Jewish level, which what I've gotten to experience that I'm so grateful to is I've been able to see how all three are basically trying to do the same thing, and I could take the same actions and be able to accomplish all three, right? 12 step says how it works. It doesn't say why it works, right? So do this. It worked for me. It could work for you. Just do it. Therapy, which the biggest therapy that I'm doing now is internal family systems therapy, which explains how, just like character defects in the 12 steps, I recommend anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about to just look it up. There are things that separate me, or there are parts of me that separate me. So separate me from others. So let's say, for example, if we go back to the Johann Hari theory, which says that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. Human connection, or even connection with God.
Okay.
But there are things that separate me from others, which make me feel isolated, which is painful to feel isolated. So if I harmed somebody else and I keep crossing the street, not seeing them, that means there's something separating me from them. If I have fear, like social anxiety, or if I have fear of people, that will keep me distant from them. If I have even a fear of God, or fear of believing in him, fear is going to separate me from others, and so is resentment. Like if I hate, if I'm angry at somebody, it's going to make me want to avoid them. Or if I'm angry at God, it's going to make me avoid Him, because to be close to Him is painful, and fear is painful, guilt is painful, shame is painful. So if all I need is connection, I want to connect with others. If what happens when I take these things away, it's connection, then maybe that's the answer. I want to connect with others. So on the 12-step level, I want to identify what are the things that separate me from others, and then try to be relieved from them one at a time, or all of them at a time. On the therapeutic level, like internal family systems, I actually engage in conversation with those parts of me. So we were talking about, I told myself something, right? Or we have the voice in our head. So what are the conversations today that I have? Like, I'll give you an example. So like, I'll tell myself, I'm so clumsy. I'm not capable. Then I'll have another part of me who will say, Why are you telling yourself that? Or, I've had this conversation a lot. So I think it's very important to say it like this. I'm in so much pain, but I know exactly what I need to do to get out of this pain. Why don't I do it? And then I have a voice in me when I commit to doing it. Why don't I do it? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just do it? So there's like this hurt person inside me. There's this critic inside me. There's another part of me that's saying, okay, this is getting way too much. Let's do something to get rid of this argument. I can't stand. So there's a third part that's going to say, okay, let's go numb out because this is way too. So I have all these different parts of me. The therapy work is to have a conversation and build a trusting relationship with these parts of ourselves to heal. Because what happens is I have a conversation with this part and I'll say, hey, part that wants to numb out, do you mind to just stop for a second? I know you want to just pull the latch down and turn off all the lights on this, but do you mind to just leave it for just a second so I can have a conversation with one of these other parts? Okay, great. And this is like a meditation. I'll do it with my therapist. And we'll try to have a conversation with this part that's like being a critic. We'll say, hey, you're criticizing, right? I trust that you're trying to look out for my best interest. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So what are you afraid might happen if you don't criticize? And asking it in that language allows the inner child, allows the exile, the part that's really hurting, to be seen and be, so the critic can very well be a part of me that can't stand, let's say I ask the critic, like, why are you criticizing? And he'll say, if I don't criticize, then there's going to be pain. If I don't criticize, then this part of me that needs to do the work to heal is not going to do the work, and there's going to be more pain.
Right. So, it's in each one of those voices or parts of you are ultimately just trying to benefit you in their own way. But too much of anything or not being in tune with that, it could drive one drive you crazy.
Yeah, and these are mechanisms that we developed according to the theory of this therapy.
Yeah.
These were developed when we were much younger. Mm-hmm. So if I can let that part be heard, express itself, then this is what really happens. And I hope people can grasp this. But basically, when there's a me that's noticing these parts, it allows me. That's the uncovering of the true me. So that's the uncovering of connection. I get connected with the true me, because every time I say I am fearful, I am careful, I'm identifying as being something.
Yeah.
But I'm identifying as being only a small part of me. When there's an observer that's noticing all these parts, I get to connect with the true me. So what happens to the 12 steps is that I get to strip all that stuff and I get to see the true me. Through this therapy work, I get to identify all these parts, but what I really identify is who's the real me. And then to round off just the religious part in the Hasidus is, I believe that if you interviewed Simon, he'll probably also would have talked about this, is the idea of like, who's the real me? And when I say I need something.
Who's the I?
Who's the I?
Yeah.
And what I learned is that the true I is really my soul, and my soul is a piece of God, and God doesn't need anything. So it's not like, oh, I don't need to do anything. Let me sit on my couch and do nothing. No, if there's an I, and the true I is my wife's husband, how can I show up as a piece of God? Or am I just a fearful, defensive human being that's limited and cannot provide to my wife what she needs? Those are my thoughts. What do you think?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. We have a few more minutes, so I want to quickly just delve into this and see how besides the journey that you just shared with us, you also now have taken your experience and you moved into coaching, personal coaching, private coaching, and I wanted to hear a bit of the work that you've been doing in that space, and of course Neshamos Neshamos.org, Neshamos, the organization that you started as well. So just give me quickly just delve into that for a bit for me.
Yeah, sure. I decided to become a life coach a few years ago when I had a conversation with somebody who was a life coach. And when she described it to me, she was explaining like, wow, dude, you have it in you.
What's that?
Just come get some.
Is that experience? Is that just the way you talk? You just go looking. You
Yeah.
just look at like what do you have?
There was something in the conversation that she
Yeah.
saw. She's like, wow, this is life coaching material. It felt good to hear that, as well as I was really excited about the idea. And it was a training that I could take that give me a method. I've always been like the type of guy that just people like felt comfortable talking to. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm humbled by that.
I feel like everybody's a life coach today, right? I mean, I feel like it's what does that process even look like to become one? And do you feel like that's being that it's so easy, accessible to become a life coach, or is it that it sort of cheapens that profession?
Very possibly. And I think anybody technically could be a life coach. For me, my experience was that I learned methods and just formats to follow that can help somebody who shows up saying, I want to change something in my life. I want to be something else in my life, or I want to stop doing something else in my life. I have a format to follow. I can learn techniques and things like that. And what I learned as part of the training, which is great, they were saying like, trust your gut and go with that, which was very important for me to hear also. And so that was the training. So I started off by just like putting up a Facebook post saying, hey guys, part of my training is I need a coach. Does anybody want some free coaching? And that's how I started, and slowly through referrals, I started doing that. And Neshamos is a local Crown Heights organization, which was formed due to the too many tragedies that were happening in our community due to untreated mental illnesses. And we discovered that the most powerful and affordable and effective way of helping that would be through empowering our community, and not just individuals, but empowering everybody by educating them. What is addiction? What is mental illness? What is depression? What is anxiety? What is it? How you can see what it is, and how you can change your behavior or how you react to it as outsiders, as well as people who are experiencing it. You can hear personal experiences from others who have recovered from that hopelessness and how they did it. So education, parents, teachers, schools, individuals, teens, as much as possible. That's what Neshamos' mission is, which is why I started doing my own podcast, which is going to be released soon. Yeah.
Amazing. Neshamos meaning souls.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. I've been to a Neshamos event myself, and it was truly amazing. It was a packed house, hundreds of people there. And it was a conversation that I don't think ever took place in the community here in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York. Breaking down stigmas, hearing straight from people's experiences of everything, what it was like, what it feels like, and opening up, I think, a room and space for compassion, for understanding, and less shame, less guilt, and just saying, hey, I can relate to that story, or perhaps I haven't had those specific things happen to me. I care about this person, and let me show up for them. Let me support them. Let me see what can we do to help in my own way. So that's really incredible. For someone who's listening now, what kind of advice can you give them or share to help them get through perhaps a tough time? If someone's finding themselves in a dark place, in the pit, what immediate steps can they take right now to know for themselves, and what actions they take to get out of that pit?
Yeah, there's a couple of things, and I'll try to say it as quickly as possible. If you have somebody in your life that you trust, and it may be a little risky, but you know that at the end of the day, you'll be okay. Like, just open up with somebody. I think the most tragic thing that happens about people who are living with internal pain is that we just keep it to ourselves. Even physical pain. Like I talked to somebody who had like a physical illness, and it was shameful. So he didn't get help for a long time. So just take the shame away. And the way we take the shame away is by just taking it out of isolation. And that's the big part of what Neshamos wants to do. Detach the shame from it, and take the isolation out of it, because it's so painful to go through a painful experience alone.
Yeah, totally.
So if you have somebody in your life, please just give it a shot. Give people a shot. And if you don't, or if you're not ready, this is an exercise that I invite a lot of people to do. I asked them this question, would you be willing to give yourself permission to imagine that for right now, at this moment, or for the next 5 minutes, I actually have no issues in my life? A lot of people are like, but I do. And when I close my eyes and I start thinking about that, I see that I do have issues. Anytime I see myself as somebody who has issues, I try to ask myself that question. Am I willing to just allow myself, just imagine. Just imagine. Hello, self-image. Do you mind to just take a minute? Let us just do this thing here where we're just going to imagine what life would be like if I didn't have any issues, just for a couple minutes. What that does is it opens up the possibilities. Because right now, everything that we're experiencing here in life, which this is a lot of the work that I'm doing, like in Chassidus, like I'm experiencing life based on my perception. That's how I'm experiencing it, based on my knowledge and based on my experience until today and the way I see it. Just like an artist who sees a painting and a musician that sees a painting, they're both going to experience a different experience. So really the darkness and the experience of it, it's all in my head. I was talking to somebody recently and I asked them, like, where's the darkest place in this world? It's in our head. Because there's somebody else that could see the same thing and see opportunity. There's somebody else that, So if I just give myself the permission to imagine that everything's okay and everything's going to be okay and try to practice that more often, just challenge these beliefs. Challenge my beliefs, or not even challenge it. Just ask, hey, belief, do you mind to step aside just for a couple minutes and let possibility open up? Which in Chassidus, that's chachma. Koyach ma. The power, koyach means power, of what? Which in the actual meaning of the word is intellect. But like, where do I get to step out of my perception of the way I'm experiencing life? I step out of it by questioning it and saying, what if? Or is it possible? Well, I give myself the permission to imagine. I'm opening it up. I'm giving myself permission. I'm surrendering the way I see life now to the belief that everything's okay. And that means that everything is divine providence. There's a God that's running the world and everything's really okay. And it's just the way I'm seeing it is bad. And then somebody will come back, but there's evil in the world. But it could be okay for you for 2 minutes in a day to experience life okay. And so that's what I'm inviting people to try. Yeah.
Awesome. Moshe, appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. We'll have to have you back on the podcast. Definitely not enough time to delve into more of who you are, what you stand for, and how you're showing up in this world. Where can people find more about yourself and your coaching?
Yeah. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, achievable.com is my website. On Instagram, I'm Coach Moishe, so Moishe, Coach Moishe. And website is Chewable Goals. And
beautiful.
I'd love to hear from you. If anybody has any comments on this, I'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate it, man.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for having us. Have a great day.